Wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey.
Dude, it's Shark Week.
That's probably not the best use of our resources.
We all know how that story ends.
Yes! I'm not going to die alone! Yeah! 5 stars! Suck it!
I've had more drugs to eat today than food. That can't be healthy.
This game. I hit a zombie in the face. You did? Nice job.
Welcome
To the Homebodies with Vern Bradley.
Oh boy, it is February 2nd, 2021, and welcome to whatever this is. It's your daily escape from your newsfeed to join your fellow homebodies and talk about all the stories no one is talking about. The global health crisis is extremely important, with over 105 million cases and 2.25 million deaths worldwide, and I advise you to use the amazing online resources, science, to keep you and your community safe and informed. But here in the Homebodies, we're going to leave all that to the experts. And I invite you to turn it off for an hour and talk about something other than the one thing everybody is talking about with your fellow Homebodies on this little show thing. And you can join the conversation in our Discord channel and even call into the show sometimes at homebodies.live. Coming up on today's show, we've got, of course, our Novid news, viral news stories not about a virus, and our virtual video village, a new weird thing that I am trying. But first, we're going to dive straight in to our brand new segment. If I hit the right button, it's always a gamble. Oh, yes. It's the future stages. And this is a peek behind the digital curtain at some of the experiments in virtual storytelling, all the nerdy stuff I've been involved with. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Robert Mark Morgan. We'll bring on the show.
Hello.
How you doing, Rob?
I'm good. Good to be here. I've been a fan of your work for quite a while, so this is a treat for me.
Because you don't know better. So tell us a little bit about your background, especially in the kind of virtual theater space, kind of dovetailing the technical meets the creative.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of my colleagues, I'm a stage designer. I've done some theme park work, some film and TV and that type of thing for a lot of years. I've been designing regionally for the most part all across the country. All of my work went poof after the COVID hit. I'd say right around mid-March, I moved all my classes online. I teach at Washington University in St. Louis. So I used to be at University of Washington in Seattle, and I just switched the two words and showed up in the Midwest. So yeah, I've been very lucky to have a really good career in that area, and never really bothered until March, really, when everybody went online to think about doing virtual theater in a virtual space. I've got kind of plugged into Frame VR a lot lately, which is sort of an outgrowth of Verbella. I've also used Verbella for some of my classes. It's like a virtual campus, but I guess generally I was, shall I say, disappointed in a lot of theater companies that just pretty much said goodnight for a year and laid off people, a lot of them my dear friends. And so I thought, well, that's not how creatives create. We use a constraint as a catalyst for being creative, and that's what we do. So, how can we do perhaps live theater in an online format? And that's when I stumbled on a lot of your work. And some articles about the stuff you've done, and I've just been kind of soaking that up. I've been hired recently to be a consultant, a long-distance consultant. Again, I'm in Missouri, in St. Louis. I've been a long-distance consultant to some students at University of California, Santa Barbara. I have a dear friend who teaches directing there named Risa Brainin. And so I've been kind of paired up to help students, for the most part, do live theater via Zoom. And so that's when I reached out to you, I think, and had a particular problem we've been dealing with for a one-act play called 3 Women and an Onion. But I don't want to jump the gun too much.
No, you're not jumping the gun at all. It's a lovely conversation to unfold. You're ready to go. What I want to do is in the context of the what is it? 1 woman and an onion, women and an onion.
3 women and an onion.
3 women wearing the same dress. Which play is it?
There's also 5 lesbians eating a quiche, but that's not this play.
I would love to know something that I've been trying to unpack as part of this show, as well as just in general, is the concept of devising new work, especially in this space.
Right.
And that's DEVISE, so design, environment, virtual, iterative, synchronicity, and engagement. And so just stepping through those one by one, I wanted to ask, when it came to envisioning the show, what was kind of the design aesthetic as far as, we're used to these scenic elements or these costume elements that we would have fabricated in physical form that we're now having to bring virtual?
Right. Do you mean with this specific one
Yeah,
act,
what
Three
were some of
Women
the
and an Onion?
challenges up front going into it?
Yeah, there's two students I'm working with. Iris Skeen is the one that I've been working with a lot, who's a student who's got this Three Women and an Onion piece. And it's a simple enough one act that I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if it wasn't your standard Zoom format, right? With some virtual backgrounds. It's simple enough. It's a funny, quick hit of a one act about three women staring at an onion on a table, and the onion somehow is appearing and reappearing, and next time they see it's sliced in half and they don't know who did it. So it's this very strange kind of funny, a little lighthearted during COVID is helpful piece. And I thought, well, this is simple enough that maybe OBS can help us to stage it, in quotes, where we are virtually placing, much like you see in some of this Microsoft Teams kind of formats, like in the NBA playoffs. You see people that look like they're seated in a chair. It would be great if we had three women appear to be seated around a table staring at an onion. And so that got into, I will say at this point, we've shifted back to a Zoom format, but we ran into some latency video issues and things like that, some audio problems.
Great. So
But
let's then talk about Zoom then as our environment, basically,
sure.
where we're going to house this experience. What was the decision to use Zoom as the client or as the?
It was more or less mandated as a project. It's the way they are looking at it. It's not something that they can sort of package and stream at a certain point, which would have been a little more helpful. It has to be live on the night, as you and I are used to in live theater. It has to happen at that moment. And so they thought, well, the Zoom webinar is the best format. That's kind of that's the parameters we need to work inside of. So I got some permission from the professor of this particular class to maybe toy around and experiment with OBS as something we use OBS Ninja to have as our acting space, and then stream that out via OBS in what would appear to be, and I can show you in a moment, what it would appear to be three women around a table.
That's awesome. And then when it comes to the virtuality of it, like what is it about this production of this show, or maybe this show in its entire ideation, that made it a virtual version? Basically, a big thing for me is that people look at like, well, it's virtual because I put it on the internet. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
let it be virtual because of how it's interactive. What was it about this show that was that the virtual elements either lended to it or inspired it?
Right. Good question. Because it's sort of baked into the cake. These students at UCSB are all remote. I mean, they're joining the call from or the show, should I say, from all parts of California and elsewhere. They are inherently in their own apartments, their basement, of their home where they grew up, their 16-year-old bedroom, whatever it might be. That's kind of we are trying to use Zoom as a kind of a way to do the show live, but from 14 different virtual spaces. In this case, 3 virtual spaces plus potentially an onion cam. We're affectionately calling it onion cam.
That's awesome. So then it sounds like the bottleneck really happened in the iterative space of trying to kind of stand it up again and again and again, or the kind of the workflow or process and all the failure points that take place when you start using a variety of actor cameras and actor audio.
Yeah. And the latency issue kind of reared its ugly head at the wrong times, where the student director would say, oh, I'm not sure how our actors can play off of each other's moment beat to beat if there's a latency issue. So we abandoned it at the moment. The shows actually happened in the middle of February at the moment, but
okay. So
but,
there's still time. There's still
time.
To
There's still time to dig it out of the trash.
So let's speak to that then. I guess what is the and if you want to share the screen, I can make you kind of take over for us. Do you want to share your OBS or do you want to just share your webcam?
Totally up to you. I can share. This is the test play. So you'll see this is a baseball in lieu of a onion at this point. I didn't run downstairs to grab an onion. I have some tweaking to do, obviously, on the green screen. The baseball is currently sitting on a green piece of poster board. And then I tested this out with a colleague. This camera I have with a green screen background, I can move myself to basically be seated at this chair behind the table, and more or less, oops, that's the background, and then kind of appear as if I'm seated at that table. We thought, oh, it'd be nice to have basically 3 women around this table. This is the background is nothing more than a 360 photo of my own kitchen. I just went on to Google Street View. If you don't know, Google Street View is a great kind of poor man's 360 camera. And I just did a 360 photo of my right in the middle of the table, and kind of set it up as sort of a top-down shot of the stage in our case.
That's awesome. Real quick off the top, I'm curious, have you played with image masks in OBS for your Onion camera?
I have not. I thought I had the green screen option only. So this is
So you do have a green screen filter, right? So in your filters on that layer, and I can actually share your main
there
screen
you go.
here. So if you right click on whatever is the Onion source.
Yes, that's the camera on a stick.
So,
it's literally on a stick.
If you right click on that, it'll show you your filters at the bottom. And if you grab that, so you've got your Chroma key on. Now, if you add down at the bottom left, you can add an image mask. And what you're going to want to try to do is, and let's see if I can share this in a reasonable way. In my camera, so see how I've got this, just a plain old image with a white area and a black area.
Yes.
And what it's going to do is it's going to occlude the black area automatically from the image.
Sure. Not unlike a Photoshop mask.
Exactly. So if you did that, you could actually make that square selection of your Onion area into a rounded area so that it actually matches the dimensions of your table.
Perfect. Yes.
So that might be a way
definitely
to get into that.
Yeah.
So that's just a real quick and fast. I saw that and I was like, oh, we could actually like put that thing on the table.
Yeah, right.
And is the idea that the green screen underneath the baseball or the Onion would then make it look like it was actually sitting on that table?
Yes, that's the goal. I haven't quite tweaked the chroma in this case well enough, but yes, I've seen it actually work fairly well. It looks like it's sitting right on the table.
That's awesome. So
and then there are moments where the playwright has written blackouts into the piece, but those aren't even necessary. You just turn the camera on the stick off for a moment, and
you
so
could add like little effects or whatever with
you could. You could. So yeah, that's kind of where we ended up with. It's like I said, that we were using OBS Ninja as, I guess the best way to describe it is as kind of a green room area where there was no latency with cameras in that environment. And then seeing three women around a table and an Onion is kind of where we ended up with it. But audio issues as well. We had some. I know you've done quite a bit of work. I will admit, in this case, I'm a set designer. I draw pictures. I do very little when it comes to, audio mixing, but I respect those who can. And so we didn't get too far into the weeds with audio. We were still running. The director was more or less saying, "Well, so where does the actors look? If they're looking at OBS Ninja, they're going to want to look at themselves at the table." And so, we ran into some issues there. We wanted to kind of, I wanted to give the director in this case the option of using OBS as an option for staging this piece. And also the option, of course, to abandon it if it's not the right recipe for her show. So.
Totally. Again, a tool is only as good as its application. So
it's true.
Hammer is a hammer. Or right to get the job done. So my question would be, I think looking at this and deconstructing it a little bit, are you satisfied with this or do you want more from it?
We were delighted with it, except for some of the technical issues of audio and latency video issues. Otherwise, it was going to be perfect. if I had a green screen, and I don't, if I had a green screen behind me, you would see the spices and the rest of the kitchen behind my head if I just did a chroma key on that camera. So it would have really been able to sell the fact that three women are around a table staring at an onion.
That's awesome. And is the idea to actually capture the actors from over their heads as well, like looking down upon them, so they're sharing the same dimensions as?
Yeah, I would say that was more or less the sort of what we were able to output from a 360 photo that we thought might work best. You know, these three chairs, well, in this case, 4 chairs, though, around a table seemed the best format so that we as an audience see all 3 women at the same time, because really it's their response. It's such a quick, fast-paced comedy. You really want to see their reactions to each other as well as the onion. So it was, I guess, the rapidity, the rapid, the necessity of response. As you know, in comedy, it's all about timing. That there's, we didn't think it was going to be that kind of, it was going to work for us, but with maybe some more advances both in technology and internet, and if the students, we could rely on some sort of broadband internet connection, which we could not, then maybe it would have worked for us.
I can tell you that if they have the data plan, a cellular connectivity is always a little bit better for me anyway than a Wi-Fi one. I get a more reliable signal. So when it came to actually like really capturing people on the day, we would then switch to kind of cell phone cellular signals, and we would then look into whether we could upgrade or help out the actors with their data package.
Okay.
That's
more or less tethered to your cell phone.
Exactly.
Got it.
Because that's going to be somewhat more reliable than usually what an actor on a consumer level is going to afford.
Sure. Yeah.
Moving beyond that, as far as the audio, I think that what you're basically going to want to do, that latency issue, we're just never going to get rid of. That's how satellites work.
Right.
And that is honestly the number one thing that has delayed not only streaming stuff like this, but even looking into kind of like VR workflows or kind of open social workflows or WebXR. Like that latency is just not something we've figured out how to navigate yet.
Yeah.
However, there have been audio low latency clients like Jamulus that I'm not sure if you've looked into.
I have not. I'm going to write that down.
That's meant for artists or musicians to kind of like jam or play together.
Oh yeah, I've heard of. Is Jack Trip another one of those?
Jack Trip is another one, yes. And they can basically port in their DAW from their machine and then play along with each other in real time.
Right.
And if you basically treat that as your audio house, right? So if you basically, as your stage manager, start thinking about these things as like, which is actually, it's so funny because the more that we unpack this, the more it just feels like real theater. Like you have a whiteboard and you have a soundboard, and so you're keeping these two things separate and you're dealing with them as separate workflows. So you think about your visual and you're keeping that inside of whether it's OBS or some other program to be able to trigger different scenes or different transitions or what have you, and virtual cam that into Zoom or whatever the Twitch the stream is. And then if you bring everybody into something like Jamulus as your audio booth or your audio board, you can then mix and make sure that that's all going well, and then port that as a single audio source virtually into Zoom or wherever your final stream is going to be.
Got it. That makes sense.
So that would be my off the cuff recommendation, as far as like just real quick to take exactly what you're doing and to go, okay, how do we minimize some of that audio latency? It's still going to be there.
Right.
But in some ways, as the actors rehearse with it, you get used to it. And what I've actually started to feel like is that you actually start running the show more at rain pace. Jumping on each other because the storm's coming.
It's one of those terms that only certain people know what that means. Rain pace, of course.
But the idea being that I'm going to jump your lines a little bit because the technology is going to delay it.
Yes. Got it.
So there's something I've honestly started figuring out is, when do I have to start speaking in someone's line for it to actually be on you?
Wow.
which is a little bit of 4D chess, and it's a little bit of a headache, and it doesn't always
Yeah.
work out. Sometimes you just totally railroad them when the clients actually do a line and the satellites are with you.
Nice.
Um, but I think as far
Does it
as
help if you have a split personality, or is that?
yeah, that I highly recommend it. But so I think that looking at that as a possible solution, um,
Yeah,
to start playing with whether or not you could bring in everybody's audio and then really control it in a singular input into
that
Zoom.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah, like you said, in real theater, we have a separate light board from a soundboard. They don't run the same thing. So
Right. Cool.
I have to add, I've had a lot of fun as well in Frame VR, and a shout out to my friend Gabriel Baker. Gabe Baker has really been working with me on the early days of VR theater. And I'm, as a designer myself, I use SketchUp a lot. I use a computer modeling program, and it excites me. We're not quite there yet, but excites me that you could design a set and drop it into a virtual reality environment, not necessarily build it. There's no, it could be an entire castle if you wish, and you don't have to worry about budget on materials and plywood and nails and steel. And so that's kind of exciting for me to be able to someday say to my students, okay, not only are you going to design this piece, but you're going to drop it into VR and we're going to perform it with avatar actors. And
you don't think we're there yet?
I did a test, which is, admittedly, I'm still a newbie at this. I did a test of this in Frame with a lot of help from the Frame VR folks, and had a lot of my colleagues. I teach in a theater department, drama department with a lot of colleagues. They showed up. And at the moment, at least in that environment, the actor has no has no arms or legs, and very little in terms of torso design, but you can design your face and your hat and your makeup and such. So, but it worked. We did a short Pinter piece, and I'm happy to, I think I might've sent the link to you, and it worked out pretty well. And there is some challenges to 3D modeling and bringing that into Frame and having it be, for example, a staircase is not climbable by an actor unless it's built into that environment, if that makes sense. So
it does.
You can walk right through doors.
Gotcha. I would encourage you, and I feel like I'm always a broken record with this. I don't know if you've checked out Mozilla Hubs.
Yes.
Because Mozilla's baked in building platform called Spoke does allow you to map a ground plane onto an object.
Yeah.
And what I've done is you can design something in Blender and bake in all your textures, and then you can export that out and just upload it, just populate it inside of Hubs.
Got it.
Whereas I know FrameVR does have the 15 megabyte limit on what you're allowed to upload as far as an environment.
Right.
I would be fascinated, and if you would be down for this experiment, I think it'd be really cool if you took one of your SketchUp designs,
right,
and uploaded it to Sketchfab.
Yes.
It will automatically generate a GLB version of the file.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That GLB can be brought into Mozilla Hubs.
Got it.
As a file. So I could take your set that you built in SketchUp, bring it into my theater, and it's on stage and we're ready to go.
Yeah, I've done that actually. I actually skipped the Sketchfab step. I just exported out of SketchUp as a GLB, or no, I did an online converter, I think, from a SketchUp file to a GLB file. So I have those good to go. We could play around with those.
That would be awesome. I think that'd be very cool, because I think to me, that's because I'd be curious about your kitchen. You could then put the actors with their web cameras around the table.
Yes.
And the audience could choose to be wherever they wanted to be to watch that show.
Yeah. Yeah, like those ESPN multicasts now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. I mean, isn't that interesting to think about the possibilities that we don't have in a physical environment? That someone can click a link and log in and see a show on a whim of sorts, and then choose their camera angle, and it's. I think the possibilities are endless. So which is why this is kind of exciting.
So then I think it gets into that S of device of the synchronicity And I'd be curious, like for you, what is that secret sauce of like, how does this show really let the audience know this is live? You know, it's happening for you. It was crafted for you. It'll never happen again like this. Like what to you is that secret sauce?
You know, we got there a little bit with this Pinter experiment. I have a little bit of backstory. I've resisted, particularly from an institutional level, that okay, we're going to have a meeting. Let's go. You know, what's your Zoom? You know, like it's this default methodology we have in our head that we have to meet on Zoom has driven me crazy. And so Frame is kind of, I'm trying to recreate for a teacher like myself that kind of organic conversational thing like the audience has when they filter into a theater, actors have before the curtain goes up. That's part of the secret sauce that I miss about being in Zoom theater land. And so we got to a place with the Pinter piece whereby I felt like people had forgotten they were in an XR environment watching a show, watching floating actors with just heads basically saying Pinter pieces. If you allow your suspension of disbelief to go just a step further, we were almost there. I feel like people were moved by Pinter's words. You know, like that's where you and I guess want to be is in that space where the story takes over and we forget about everything else. And you know, that's when all the cylinders are firing in theater that we want to be there. We want to be at that place.
Cool.
I did an Anne Frank once in Cleveland, at Cleveland Playhouse, and I recall it was a preview, you know, and a preview night where there's, you know, the designers stay and we have notes for perhaps hours after the show is over. There was an audience member who couldn't move after the show was over because he was so shook by the story. And, you know, as you don't want to sort of revel in someone being shook that hard, but you're like, that's why we do it, is to have that kind of effect on an audience member. So, you know, we were all high-fiving each other like, look, that guy has to stay a few minutes.
Right.
Because we profoundly affected him. But anyway,
No,
I think that's where we want to be in VR if we can get there. Is just forget about where we are, forget about how we're watching the show, but that we're invested in the story.
And how do you think that applies to things like engagement when it comes to, we can now interact more with the story, but is that a good thing or a bad thing? Do we like that? Do we,
You mean audience to actor interaction?
yeah.
I think we do that already in live theater with post-show talkbacks and things like that. I found that really rewarding after the Pinter piece to get some input back from my colleagues to say, oh, I see some possibilities here, you know, or I might not want to use this space for a theater piece, but I could see myself teaching here. I've used some Frame VR spaces for just teaching and pinup work, you know, and students, I think, miss the opportunity to just say something or talk to a friend. And in VR, we have that, as opposed to Zoom, we all have our muted microphones and most of us have our cameras turned off as well. There's no organic conversation happening, but there's nothing wrong, I don't think, with having, as long as the audience is quiet when they need to be quiet during a show. I feel like hearing applause is interesting.
Yeah, or hearing the laugh. That's definitely a missing moment still right now.
I've been afforded the opportunity this semester to teach teach my intro to theater production class in a theater on our campus. And we sang happy birthday to a student last Tuesday. And I almost wept because we haven't had that chance to do that in quite a while. But I don't mean to pontificate too much, but it's,
I love it.
You know, that's what that's the secret sauce we're hoping to re-tap into, or that's not a word, but
call out a comment from Spencer. The bit about the talking heads made me think of Not I by Samuel Beckett, and that suits itself wonderfully for virtual theater. That's actually a Beckett play I'm not familiar with. Rob, do you know that one?
I don't know that piece at all, but I think Beckett, Pinter, like a lot of these abstractions could work really well, you know? And even the one acts like the Three Women and an Onion, I think could really work well. Starting small, building on small successes to the larger ones, not trying to mount Les Mis before we do something that's, a little smaller, I think makes a lot of sense. But I don't know that piece specifically, Spencer, but yeah, I mean, I think what's wonderful about the theater community, and I think, Brendan, you honestly exemplify this, is that we are more than willing to share tricks. We're more than willing to share ideas. And because we know that building on ideas is the key to getting to where we want to go, and that, keeping any of that to ourselves is just antithetical to how we think and create and work together. It's a collaborative art form, unlike myself and a painting and my canvas and my angst. It's why we do it, is so you get to a place with, as designers, I have designers I work with so often that I can look across the theater at them and not say a single word. And they're like, yeah, I'm working on it. I know that's not the right, I need to shutter that. That's a broken lens, or whatever it might be.
Right.
And it's like, that's where you're like working on a different plane.
That's cool. No, I love that. And that's so well articulated, because I think so much of what has happened in, so much of technology culture, right, is somewhat about gatekeeping. It's about proprietary information. It's, I own this thing and I have a patent out for it and blah, blah, blah. And so much of theater, or at least artistic culture, is like, well, I didn't invent theater. I'm just building upon thousands of years of a ritual and a tradition. And so it feels weird to suddenly become proprietary about the access to storytelling. That's weird. But
Yes.
there are these kind of dueling philosophies and cultures that have entered this moment in this arena. And I think in a lot of ways, the fact that everybody now has a technological layer onto their industry, no matter what that industry is,
Yeah.
does invite room for some of this kind of scarcity predatory model of like who gets to control the access.
Yes.
I think that it is going to take a lot of people to kind of wave their arms in the air and be like, no, it's for everybody. Everybody still gets to make things.
Yes.
You can sell tickets, you can sell merch.
Yeah.
But access to being able to tell stories is very, very weird.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I would argue that the entrepreneurs, the business side of the world, are looking to us now. I read something in Fast Company magazine about the MFA is the new MBA, and that a lot of companies are, I do some consulting locally here in St. Louis with an organization called Coca Biz, or the business side of the Center of Creative Arts. And they march guest artists like myself in front of Anheuser-Busch and Wells Fargo and, these companies to teach them how to be creative. And it's all about that. There is this implication at a long, like Hudsucker proxy conference room table, that the man or woman at the end of the table has all the ideas, and that it's just like nodding. But you and I know that it's all about tossing ideas into a table and picking out the best one. And the winning idea might come from somebody stitching a costume 3 floors below you. There's no hierarchy to ideas in what we do. And that's, I think, what companies now are going, hey, maybe the creatives have something we can learn about engendering an atmosphere where ideas are free to flourish and come forth, as opposed to waiting for the CEO to say something and we're all like, sure. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir.
So, Rob, with that note, is there anything that you want to take away from today that you feel like is still unanswered, that you want to roll up our sleeves and play with before
I feel like I need to do my own research. Like I said, I've been watching a lot of your video and going, okay, I need to go and get that app that allows me to do this and that, and then maybe this will work. So I feel like I'm in a good place to know where to go. The Jack Trip idea, or the other vendor you said that's like Jack Trip.
Janulus,
yeah. So I need to kind of go in that route and iterate this some more. And in the university environment, as a theater person, students are great guinea pigs for this type of work. So, you just like you often, I think, convey a sense of like, let's try this. I don't know if it'll work, but let's give it a shot. This recipe may taste horrible, but let's throw all the recipe together and see where we go with it. But
that's awesome.
I definitely I teach a class on creativity, and I firmly believe that the creative process is, as Brian Collins, famous designer, he likes to say that designing is rehearsing the future, and that's all we're trying to do is just try something out, see how it works. So really appreciate the work that you do and the sharing of ideas that you do. Help, whether you know it or not, help those of us like myself to go, okay, I'm going to watch that one part of Brendan's video about, audio and really study what he's doing so I can duplicate that. So that's been very helpful.
I barely know what I'm doing.
But again, we build, together, we can figure this, we can crack this egg together and figure this whole thing out.
Can you promote, are you allowed to promote? Is it an open performance, the Onion play?
Oh, it's no, it's not. Well, it's I think that the ship has sailed on the fact that they're doing it in Zoom and not the way I've just illustrated. But it is at University of California, Santa Barbara. I could send you the link to the performance that they're doing that.
So that we can support your work in the future and keep collaborating and experimenting with new ideas. I definitely would love to stay in touch.
Sure.
Part.
Yeah. And my professional website is morgansetdesign.com. It's really easy to remember. And you can see the work I've done. Like I said, I've done sea lion and otter shows for SeaWorld, and I've did an avatar exhibit, and I've done a lot of theater in between. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this and being willing to have a conversation in front of other people. I know that that's a weird way to have meetings now, but I feel like it's all information for the community. And so I'm just so grateful you're willing to come on this little thing.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. It's a treat to meet you. And, thanks for being willing to work together on this. And if other synergies, as they think they say, come up, let me know.
Well, great, Rob. Thanks so much. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much to Rob for coming on the Homebodies and having a chat about this whole thing. Excited about where he wanted to take that Onion play. That's very cool. And thanks to everybody in the chat for saying hello and suggesting ideas. And Spencer, I definitely want to check out that link to Not I, the Sam Beckett play that I've actually never read. He posted that in the Discord chat, so you can check that out. And I'm seeing a bunch of other folks in the Discord. Hello to Angelique. Hello to Clark. It's good to see people rallying around the Homebodies community. And speaking of the Homebodies community, of course, it wouldn't be a Homebodies show without
Novid News. Viral stories, not about a virus.
Amazon's bad at tipping. Hollywood sign has some unofficial changes, and talking plants. Here on Novid News, viral news stories not about a virus. These are just some quick hits I've pulled from the internet and our Discord channel. Feel free to join the conversation in our community at homebodies.live. That's .live. Holly Boob, the sign read briefly, with the big tarp with the letters B thrown over the W and a strategically placed white dash to make the other D a B. The Hollywood sign yesterday read Holly Boob for a brief window. LAPD security personnel observed 5 men and 1 woman on surveillance at about 1:15 p.m. All 6 will be cited with a misdemeanor for trespassing. There's no vandalism because the sign was not damaged. I mean, it's a very, very immature prank. And honestly, like, come on. Like, I don't know. Especially being in like, the AR space and the XR space, you could have made an app that did that and had some fun with it. But it feels a little weird to have trespassed and to have damaged a monument, an icon, a landmark, if you will. But I wanted to know, has anyone ever pulled a large prank in the chat? And was it worth it? You can join the Discord at homebodies.live and even drop into the call-in queue if you wanted to talk about that. I believe I can bring people on the show. Don't quote me on it, but I think it can happen. I actually, growing up, one of my best friends was a massive pranker. He liked to do pranks all the time. what I like about kind of OG old school pranks is they don't harm other people. He wasn't like going up to the street and messing with people. He was messing with me because we were friends and I knew it was coming. And something that he did, we took a road trip to Florida in high school with our fathers, and he had a photo of me sleeping in this winter hat that I kind of always wore in the wintertime. It was a kind of a gesture type hat. That I thought I was cool wearing. Yes. And he got pictures, flyers printed up. Basically, have you seen this man? And every gas station that we stopped at on the way, he went in and said, would they put it up there? And then when I would go use the bathroom, and it took about 3 or 4 stores before I like bought a Gatorade or something and was standing in line. And I was like, I'm behind the counter. That's weird. And that was to me a very fun, harmless prank because I was the only person involved, and it was a fun inside joke for us that that if you drove down the highway on the way to Florida from North Carolina, you would find me on a poster somewhere. Speaking of me, checking in on my personal timeline, this is the 4th day of bringing back the show, which ran for 8 weeks last year consecutively. It's my 328th day of full quarantine and 342 days since my life completely derailed when I got sick and had to go indoors right before everybody had to go indoors. And it's so good to be back with all of you in the community. Looking in the Novid News tab, Halsey appears to have just posted 10,000 years. Here's how long Phil Connors was trapped in Groundhog's Day. I'm going to open this on the fly. Since the inception of the internet, amateur sleuths have attempted to more precisely crack the code of just how many days Connor was trapped in Groundhog's Day. I'm scrubbing through this again. We're reading this on the fly. How long the maker spends in his limbo. 10 years since the release of the film. Trying to find where they... A line from an early draft of Groundhog's Day screenplay, which the character of Phil Connors admits to being trapped in a time loop for 10,000 years. The screenwriter's initial plan was to have Connors trapped in the time loop for several millennia. The original script contains a final confession by Connors to his love interest, Rita. I've been waiting for you every day for 10,000 years. It's a lovely little bit of trivia. Thanks to our Novid News, and thanks to Halsey in the chat for throwing that in our Discord channel. Looking into the chat real fast, Jerome says, a buddy and I found a parked steamroller and managed to turn it on, and then we could not turn it off. We ran. Oh man, who's the prank on in that situation? Is the prank on yourselves? I hope no one got hurt, but that's fantastic, Drum. Thanks for sharing that. Penn wants to know, how am I bringing people in for calls? We've been experimenting with it using Discord, and it turned out pretty well, so long as the other person has solid internet. Yes, I'm using Discord for the main interview of the show. Oh, sorry, I'm using Restream for the main interview of the show. And then what I want to try to do is do some calls on the Discord voice channel, the call-in queue that is available on the homebodies.live Discord. Haven't tried it yet, but Penn, I'd love to try that experiment with you. Maybe we'll set up you can be on the Future Stages segment one of these days. Email me, text me, figure it out, get in touch. Halsey, my high school drama class once pulled a great April Fool's prank. What was it, Halsey? Tell us. Getting back to some Novid news, and we can circle back to pranks.
Novid-19, the top viral stories not about a virus.
Amazon to pay $61.7 million to delivery drivers after withholding tips. The settlement comes nearly 2 years after the Los Angeles Times first exposed tip withholding practices. Absolutely despicable. Come on, Amazon. I mean, like, how much more money does Amazon need? But definitely, if you are someone who is receiving deliveries or kind of groceries or, Postmates or whatever, remember, we live in a very, very terrible economy. Everyone's trying to make a buck, and you should always tip people. Always tip people. One of my first jobs was being a delivery person on a bike in New York City. And Gotta tell you, people did not tip me enough for me basically almost dying every single day. So please tip the folks that provide you all the services, or do it your dang self. Scientists have taught spinach to send emails. Engineers have used nanotechnology, which allows plants to communicate with humans. Plant-human communication is finally here, and it's wonderfully weird. Leafy green. Spinach has been engineered to send emails when it finds specific compounds in the soil. This tech could be used to detect landmines, pollution, and even upcoming droughts, making it the ultimate superfood. Here's what I want to know about the emailing spinach. For years and years and years, I've had the omnivore's dilemma of the fact that I eat meat and that is a creature, and that creature is conscious, and that I am causing harm to conscious creatures. And it is something that fills me with occasional guilt. And then it's delicious. But it does make me think, so if plants are known to be communicative and conscious, how do we feel about vegetarians? Huh? Take that back to you. Take that back to you. Looking in the live show chat real fast before we move on to our final segment of the show. Alrighty, here we go. Oh, right. This is something that I've tried. Let's see if I find the right button for it. Yes. Because I don't have ads on the show, I'm advertising my own product, which is a fitness game that I invented several years ago. That is Magic the Gathering for personal fitness. You draw a variety of cards, they make a workout, you perform the workout, you build up your creatures to attack your friends. And I figured a nice little 15-second spurt during the show would remind us all to be active. I'm looking at these, and it's 15 seconds. This is a Bridge Architect, which is a side plank. The green screen's taking it out a little bit. Activity side plank. Lay on left side with feet stacked. Left elbow in line with your heels and below shoulder tighten core. Lift hips off the ground. Keep head in line with the body and hold for X seconds. Repeat on the other side. Let's see if I do this and change the lens. Change the lens. There we go. And the green screen is taking out the green, as you see, but you can at least get a sense of this card. I'll have to actually prep this instead of randomly drawing cards and put graphics on the screen. But this is what the Bridge Architect card is doing. So I'm going to take 15 seconds right now and just do a side plank, and invite you to do it with me. Join me in this. It'll get the blood flowing. We're just going to choose one side, left side or right side. 15 quick seconds. Spencer said he already had his workout today, shoveling snow. Well, now we're going to do the core, Spencer. It's totally optional, but I'm going to do it real fast just because otherwise I get stuck behind this computer all day. So I'm going to crank this music, 15 seconds on the clock, and on to our sides. Excellent, excellent. For those that did it, I appreciate you. I don't see you, but I see you, if you know what I mean. That's my fun little non-sponsored, sponsored segment of the show. Maybe someday there'll be real ads there with real stuff that people do with their lives and make money on and pay me in the show. Who knows? So that is our sponsored segment of today, thanks to FitFan, which is an app available on the App Store and the Google Play Store if you'd like to check that out. I'm going to wind down the show today with our final segment, the virtual video village. Traditionally on a film set, the cast and crew can see what's happening on a cluster of screens to make changes and collaborate. This is called Video Village. And as a scrappy storyteller, I've never had the budget to do this on my films, but now that we're all working from home, I wanted to share a single take from each day of filming to collaborate with you, the virtual community. As Hollywood and Broadway remain shut down, how do we tell stories in isolation? So to explore this, Ashley Clements and I are creating a film in chronological order. Each day we improvise the next scene in the story, set up cameras, rehearse, film each other. We don't know where it's going, and we invite you to join us for the adventure. Give us feedback, give us ideas, even collaborate as our virtual crew and cast. The Homebodies is a fully improvised dramatic story about a couple in financial trouble who turn to the world of adult camming to pay the bills. Many of our scenes involve in-world videos and FaceTime calls where we allow you to improvise your own side of the conversation and put yourself in the movie using the hashtag HomebodiesLive. It's a fun little thing we're trying out. And today, ramp back up into our music cue. We've got this walk and talk scene with Ashley on the phone. So I'm leaning backwards while she's walking forwards. This is glitching because of my latency issues. So sorry about that. It's much smoother, I promise. It is not a stop motion movie. So this is her walking into the car. She's on the call with me. And then we did catch in this first shot a little bit of reflection in the car window. So we're catching a reflection of me in the car window. So we had to go back and do it a couple different times. We ultimately lowered the window and did it a little bit more cleanly. But this just gives you a sense of what that shot was. My webcam's not up. There we go. And I joined on the other side and Ashley held the camera on me. And I'm on the other side of the phone call. She's calling to ask me about what we're having for dinner. We find out that I have not prepared anything, and I find a completely frozen in the freezer and pretending that I've already started dinner and it's all going to be fine. So this is how we meet our two characters in this story to kind of define their relationship, show a little bit of banter and fun between them, and feel like we like them and we're invested in their journey and their personalities. So that's the second moment, the second scene that we came up with, improvised, storyboarded, camera on each other for the Homebodies, the movie, film, series, digital thing, video project, not the podcast that you're all a part of here today. So that's our virtual video village for today. If you have any questions about how we shot that, how we made that, and what might come next in our story, I'm basically using this as an accountability method to be able to try to edit one scene a day and get it out there. I'm looking in the live studio of Restream, and it appears that I have frozen on the video. So I hope you can still hear me. And thank you for dealing with whatever my Wi-Fi is doing right now, but it's probably telling me I need to wrap up the show. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of today's Homebodies, this delightful little experiment for me to get back into the groove and get back to my community. Thanks for helping me escape my news feed and joining your fellow Homebodies with a break from the one story everybody is talking about. Enjoy the rest of your day, get off social media, and I hope to see you back here tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Now go create something.